Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of Hobby Side. This is our series of videos that are dedicated to showing the hobby aspect of our channel. And today we're doing an army showcase. This time we're taking a look at our Empire army for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. We also use this as a Free People's Army for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. We also use this for the Empire Sunstall back when we used to play 9th edition, 9th Age of that fantasy game. So today we're going to talk about exactly what each of the units look like and talk about exactly what design behind them and what kind of paint scheme we're going with and what we created for it. So we're going to start off here with this very first row. We're going to talk about the war machines as well as the cavalry models as well as a steam tank. We'll then go to the second row of miniatures, which talks about the missile troops that we have as well as this Pegasus Knight. And then finally we'll go back here with the infantry units and talk about all of that. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this show on the road. Alright, so just to start off the bat, let's go and talk about this very first row of troops. Now, just hands down, I'll let you guys know, this is the most colorful army we actually have in the collection for the studio that we use for our battle reports. Like I said before, I'm a very huge fan of vibrant color schemes when it comes to different armies. So needless to say, this was an absolute joy to paint and also put together and to assemble. So it's also kind of telling because this collection also kind of shows you the kind of like how long we've been in the Warhammer fantasy genre and how long we've been collecting it for, as well as some of the things that we talked about earlier in terms of where we got our miniatures from. So first of all, let's go and start off with the steam tank. This is known as the Panzerbarn. It is an 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy miniature. As you can see, it's made out of plastic. It's got a nice chariot base there. And what we kind of decided to do with the Panzerbarn is use a lot of steam, a lot of bronze, a lot of metallic paints to represent that this thing was a, it's been around and made during the time of the Renaissance. So you can see you have lots of dark steel colors as well as bronze. If you look at the shields are also done in various designs and colors. And the reason why is because this army is narratively known as the Schwarzwald Free Companies, which basically means Black Forest mercenaries, what they basically are. And so to represent that fact, we have different shields representing the different, lords they might have served under. And as you can see, you got the engineer on top as well with the blue and yellow as well. Up next, we have another 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle Wizard. This is a metal wizard for the gold. I believe it's the gold wizards what they're called back in the day because they use the metal lore of metal. So this is Maximilian Max. I decided to kind of go with like a New Orleans style like Mardi Gras color scheme with purple and yellow and green, just because I thought he looked like something with that mask. It looked something like from a carnival mask. So that's how we go with that guy. Next up is our huge unit of knights. There's 21 of them. This is called the Vagrant Brotherhood. And as you can see, it's a nice little collection of different knights as well as different colors as well. Up in the front in the middle, that is the original Ludwig Schwarzhelm, I believe is his name. That was the Imperial Battle Standard Bearer for the Emperor. This is from the 4th edition of Warhammer, and this is actually a pewter model. He's flanked on two sides by Empire General models from the 8th edition, the very last kit they used to sell out. This is the champion here. He's the hero that's associated with it, and then this is the unit champion as well. And the rest of the miniatures are actually a mixture of a couple of model lines. For example, this knight here at the front, this one with the orange and yellow shield, he's actually from a game called Battle Masters. Same thing with this red and yellow one as well. These two types of miniatures are representing most of the army. This one, the old Battle Masters set of miniatures, and we talked about this before on my channel, and this is where the bulk of my Empire army comes from. In fact, every set of Battle Masters, you got 3 of these knights as well as 9 of these knights as well. So because of that, they make it the bulk of the army. The other one that I have is this one here, this orange color knight here. That is from an old Milton Bradley game called Lionheart. That's what the name of the game called. It was kind of like chess, but you actually had 28mm figurines, so it had a lot of knights as well as spearmen. We'll talk about that here in a second when we get to the infantry units. So that makes up the entirety of the unit. And as you can see, you have different units associated throughout. One of the things I disliked about the way people paint for Warhammer fantasies, when they paint Empire armies, they usually use the same color scheme for all of the units and for all the entire army and stuff. The idea is supposed to be that the Empire is supposed to be based off of Renaissance era Germany around the 14 to 1600s, like during the 30 Years War period, or the like during the Protestant Reformation, where you have these Renaissance units with very bright colors. They're called Landknechts. That's what the infantry were called, and those units were very brightly colored. So that's why we went with the idea that each of these knights have their own coat of arms, kind of like Bretonnians in that sense, because we could use these guys for Bretonnians if we wanted to as well. So as you can see, very cool color scheme. Every mount is matched with a rider with their shield emblem on it for heraldry. Just an awesome unit to put together. 21 strong, just an absolute devastating powerhouse unit. And then finally over here we got our 2 war machines. This is Blitzen, which is the Hellblaster volley gun. It's from a old, I believe it's 6th edition Warhammer. This is back when they still made pewter miniatures, but this is like the newer designed one. You can see there's a crew, they're decked out in cream as well as in turquoise because it makes it look and pop. And then there's another great cannon. This one is actually from the Battle Masters game set we talked about earlier. You got one of these cannons as well as these 2 crewmen over here on the left, or part of the original box set that came with that. And then of course you have your Master Engineer character, what I'm using for the last crewman. So yeah, very cool set. This makes it the very first row. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about the long-range shooting options for this army. We'll talk about those guys next. Alright, and we're back, and this time we're taking a look at our second rank of troops, which are the long-range shooting options that the actual army actually has, as well as this Pegasus Knight up here on the top. As you can see, we actually have a couple of things. These things are actually made from 2 units of archers, 10 each. Now these archers, as you can see, they're all painted different colors. The idea is supposed to be like these guys were just like mercenaries or like, villagers that just kind of joined up to, help fight. These 10 archers are once again from that line Battle Masters. So in that game Battle Masters, you got 2 units of 5 archers, giving you 10. And when I got a second box set of those, I actually ended up having 2 units of 10 archers total. So these guys are very useful. They can skirmish and all kinds of good stuff. Like I said before, we paint them up in different color schemes, represent the fact that they look like knights from the Renaissance era who wore very bright colors and like different ribbons and things, and that's what we kind of went for. We kind of used the color of yellow to kind of unify the entire army. And at the same time, we got 2 units of 10 handgunners as well. As you can see, these guys are painted up in various shades of blue and turquoise and yellow. And these 10 are made up in different shades of purple as well as yellow as well. Like I said, the yellow color scheme kind of spreads out the entire army to like kind of unify them all as one force. These units are actually from the 5th edition of Warhammer, the old pewter models. So as you can see, this guy right here, for example, in the back with the red beard, that guy was like an edition of the 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. That's what the handgunners look like. And then this guy here with the little feather in his cap, he's actually from the 6th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, when they had these little, they used to sell these boxes of detachers, they called them. You had like 8 handgunners and 8 spearmen that came with each unit. And so those were really awesome. I got those for a song. I bought those used. And so because I cobbled the other 2 units together to create the 2 different handgunner units as well. They also got Hawkland long rifles, as well as the engineer character from the 8th edition of Warhammer. Used them to do that. And then finally, the Pegasus Knight back here. This guy is actually unfinished, actually. I didn't realize this, but I actually need to go back and finish painting this miniature. This is actually the old Karl Franz miniature from the 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And I actually had the Griffin. I just never got around to painting the Griffin yet. And then what I did is I mounted him on a Bretonnium Pegasus Knight Pegasus, so that way you can fly around and work on it. So this is Hans Jaeger as well as Königswinter. The archers are known as Rommel's Rangers. And of course, these guys are also known as the Yellow Companies, what they're known as, the handgunner units. So pretty cool to see units here, just kind of cobbled together from different things. Very nice. Alright, so now that we're done with the missile troops, we're going to go now to the final very back rank and talk about the infantry forces for this army, and then we'll finish up this army showcase. Alright, and finally we're going to talk about the infantry units for this army showcase, the Empire Army, which is basically the core of the army. We also did a lot of conversion work on these miniatures as well. We're going to talk about that real quick. So, starting off with the 2 detachments on the left and right hand side. These are units of halberdiers. These guys were also converted as well. In fact, if you look, these miniatures here are actually a combination of different miniature lines as well. So like I said before, these guys are supposed to be based off what are called Landnex units from the 30 years war period, where you start seeing the Renaissance. And during that time period, they actually used what was known as pike formations, where these huge 12-foot spears that they would use, infantry would use to fight against heavy cavalry. And then what they would use those pikes for is to defend handgunners, and that pretty much brought down the age of men on horseback with armor, because when you can wear all the armor in the world, but it's not going to stop a bullet, especially during that time period. So to make these guys look like that, what I did is I decided to take some of my miniatures and actually put in floral wire and actually extended the length of the spears they're carrying to make them look like pikes from that time period. And so that's exactly what we did for these ones. Now these guys in the front, the guy on the left here and the guy on the right here, they're actually from another line of miniatures made by Warlord Games called Pike and Shot. and it's actually like a 30 years war game. So they actually have Pike miniatures, so I use those guys as inspirations. And then what I did is I took other like Games Workshop Imperial State troops, as you can see back there, and just add the floral wire with the blades at the end to make it look like pikes. Now these guys back here with the fleur de lis shields, those are actually from that game Lionheart I talked about earlier that was made by Milton Bradley. They have like 20 of these guys. So what I did is I just took out the little dinky tips of the spears and replaced them with these long pikes instead. And this is what's called the Blue Company, is what they're called for obvious reasons. They're made out of blue and red colors. I also got a Wizard of the Heavens miniature from the old Talisman board game that used to exist. Same thing with the Warrior Priest as well. And I also have from the Raging Heroes lines the Königsmark sisters. I believe that's Gretchen. I believe that's her name. She's the one who's like a witch hunter. So that's that unit here. And then over here in the center, this huge honking unit here, this is the Black Company we call it. And this is our unit of great swords. And as you can see, it's also a mixture of things as well. So see on the front, you have these miniatures here, these armored individuals, the huge halberds. Those are from the Milton Bradley game Lionheart. I also got a command group of great swords from the 5th edition of Warhammer, back when they still used to have pewter. I also have the Imperial Battle Standard kits that used to be sold by Games Workshop for the General. So you see, I got the grizzled one-eyed veteran with the huge Warhammer, as well as the really large Army Standard. I got a 4th edition Jade Wizard that I use for like Lore of Life, because the model looks really cool. It's also got a halberd. And then the rest of the halberdiers that make up this unit, which are proxying for great swords, these are from Battlemaster. In fact, in that game Battlemaster, you got a unit of 15, so 3 units of 5 per box set. Since I had 2 box sets, that gave me 30 halberdiers, which then gave me this huge unit of Black Company great swords guys. Great swords are amazing infantry units for the Empire, especially for 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy. So that's where they came from. And then last but not least, we have the Red Company, which is the very last of our units as well. Once again, we saw with the Blue Company, I did exactly the same thing, replaced our pikes for floral wire to make it look like pikes. As you can see, I got like a Life Wizard from 8th edition Warhammer, same thing with the Battle Center Bear again. I believe that is Brunhilde von Königsmark from Raging Heroes. I also got a couple of Warlord miniatures there from Pike and Shot, and then of course the rest is made up of either Warhammer miniatures from Games Workshop or from Milton Bradley's Lionheart. So yeah, that's the army showcase that we just did for the Empire. So as always, you guys, please feel free to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, also known as blogger.com, for all the latest and greatest about our hobby. Also leave any comments, likes, and or subscribe. Your input is valuable as always. That's good for this one, you guys. You guys stay classy. Peace out.